All right. Last night, Baylor football coaching staff, some media relations, and a handful of others threw an event at Terry Black's Barbecue, which is in downtown. It's brand new, very popular place. But they had a Baylor coaches event with some media. And, Paul, you were there. Garrett, you were there. And also I was there. And we were able to talk to some of the coaches. And the best part of the whole night was when Keenan Hall and I, first time I've actually got to meet him. We've talked many times, text a lot. But he walked up to me, and I brought up the flipping of Caleb Burns, and I brought up a few other things.
Which he couldn't talk about officially, of course.
No, I didn't bring up the player's name. Right. No, you can't do that. But he said, hey, there's more to come. We're going to bring in more. And, I mean, the staff seemed to be very confident. They're on this nice roll. The GXG has a lot to do with it. Jeremy Fudge and John Passavant, David Kay. But it did seem like, and the whole time you'd see like Keenan would leave the room and get on the phone, or Pallage would be on the phone, or Kevin Curtis would be on the phone, et cetera, Dallas Baker, on and on and on. But I had a chance. It was great to get to just talk to some guys off to the side. Dave Aranda was funny because last year we did this event. Paul, where was it at? It was at Rooted.
It was at Southern Roots.
The Root Canal or whatever.
Yeah.
Southern Roots. And they had games. And they played games. And again, there's food. I think it was pizza. And then if you want to have a beer or two or five, whatever, you can. But they played games. He goes, last year we played games and we went 3-9. We're not doing that this year.
Yeah. And sometimes you get put on a team with people you don't trust or like.
Yeah,
that can happen as well.
Was that mentioned as part of the problems a year ago?
No.
Okay.
No. That was just my
I gave Paul
personal
hell.
thing.
I gave you hell for a week.
Yeah. So I didn't pick it. But anyway, I got to talk to Matt Pallage a lot, and I talked to, for a long time, Jake Spavital, and I asked him, and because he was just a head coach at a G5 school, I was really curious his perspective on the walk-ons. Now, he said that anytime when he was at Texas State and somebody came in and said, hey, Coach, Kentucky just offered me $150,000, he's like, well, go to Kentucky, man. Like, I'm not going to – I can't do it. I'm sorry to lose you. And he's like, they would come in tears, and he's like, look, I know it sucks, but, like, it is what it is. I can't fight it, which I guess is the best way to look at it and not be fatalistic.
Right.
But I also asked him about the walk-ons, and he said the best part about the walk-ons is you have a culture of kids fighting to earn a spot. And now he's like, it's not about so much the 25 guys that they're losing. It's the way that those guys are on the team. And now, yes, they've got 20 more guys, but those guys are all getting scholarships, and you lose that little bit of edge. And now, the 105th guy is going to ask for something that he would have never even had the balls to ask for in the past. And it's those kind of things I think culture-wise they're worried about. Not so much the overall roster because, look, 125, 105, I don't think that really matters. Scholarships is more. It's that they're going to have a tougher time building the culture than they did before.
Yeah, I want to circle back to the recruiting thing as well that you mentioned at the top, but I think that's a great explanation. We were wondering, what's the big deal? And the lack of walk-ons, why would that be so concerning unless you're just an institution like Nebraska where you've really flaunted that and that's a part of your DNA? Why would that be such a big deal, having more scholarships? But that makes a lot of sense as to why it could be problematic. And I think in most cases that 105th guy who's all of a sudden thinking he's got room to ask for something is going to be on another team the next year because you can only play 11 guys at a time. So you have all these extra scholarship players, but the odds of all of them seeing the field now, like, it's going to be the same the way that it was before. It's just that some of the guys who were playing that were walk-ons are now on scholarship. So I don't know if that'll command enough, like basically being a primary special teams guy to keep your scholarship year to year. So, I think that should probably be less problematic for the most part. But, yeah, I certainly can see where some of those problems might arise when guys are thinking that because they're scholarship guys and there's bigger rosters, they can demand more. But particularly, more than that, the culture part of it, that makes a lot of sense. To not have the work ethic and the blood, sweat, and tears and doing it for the love of the game type of attitude in your locker room and have that to point to. and kind of humble some of maybe the guys who are getting everything once in a while and be like, hey, this dude's not getting jack. He's paying for school. He's outworking your ass. Like those kind of moments, like to miss out on that. Yeah, I do think that is actually a subtraction. And so that's a really good point.
I will miss those announcements that they do sometimes when there's a team meeting about somebody becoming on scholarship or added to scholarship, the 12th man, and that tradition, that person now just becomes, I don't know if that changes or not at A&M, but it's good that you were able to get that from a coach so he could explain exactly the good and or also the concern. Craig, you were going to loop back around to recruiting?
Yeah, you mentioned Keenan Hall and just the success that they're having and all that, and without getting into details, he's clearly ruffled feathers around the rest of the league. That there's some other schools that don't love the success that they're having right now and have vocalized that on social media. And I just think that that's the response that he apparently had without divulging too much of just like, we're not going to back down and we're not going to like not do our thing. And if it bothers you, so be it. But like, they're not doing anything that's against the rules. They're not doing anything that's out of pocket. They're operating, quite frankly, behind everybody else and just now catching up to the way a lot of it was being done, and they're having success, and it's bothering some folks, but I just find it funny, and I find it funny that they find it funny, and, you got to go out and win games ultimately, or none of it matters, but I love their response to some of the criticism, and guess what? Would you rather have criticism for landing multiple 4-stars, over a month's period, or would you rather be the team who's getting criticized for being inactive and not having great NIL and not landing guys and not recruiting well? So, I see, well, you're just paying players. That's the whole thing now. That's the whole deal.
It's one thing that when you're ahead of the curve and you can kind of be the bully and kind of brag about it, then all of a sudden the kid you've been picking on, and there has been some of that, all of a sudden they fight back and they start winning some of those battles and flip somebody. Yeah, I was told last night we are no longer going to be bullied for how we recruit. No, that was basically the quote.
I think that's great. That's how they need to approach it. And look, we have this all this available to you. Yeah, there's no that's not the same as it was. It's not like some schools are paying and some schools are like, we would never. No, everybody's paying. So that's
except for Clemson.
Yeah, they're paying. They just don't go.
No, they're paying their own guys.
They're paying their own guys. But I'll tell you this, especially when you go back to the criticism that Craig had of, would you rather be criticized from the outside or by being when you get criticized for being lazy, that's your own fan. So Soki, if I walk out of this studio and somebody who doesn't like the show goes, hey, Catalina, you suck, I'll be like, okay. But if you told me, Paul, you really suck at this, that would hurt me more because it happens in here. So your fans criticizing you hurts a whole lot more than the other guys doing. And in fact, the other guys criticizing you, that tastes delicious.
No, yeah, and absolutely. Now that shoes a little bit on the other foot. We'll see how it plays out. There's a long way to go, man, for the class of 2025. But it was interesting just kind of some of the barking after they flipped Caleb Burns from Texas Tech. And, Aranda's quote, I think, set a lot of that on fire because now, everybody's, how's Baylor? Well, they're paying players, going back to that. But it's working. It's legal. It's all fair game. And there's nothing disingenuous or dastardly about it. It's just that, the shoe's on the other foot now, and their success is bothering some folks. So I think just mostly that throws a little gasoline on the Big 12 recruiting fire and creates, a bit more.
Hey, that's good, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that's a positive of it. I think the more competitive you can be recruiting, then that's best for all the prospects and best for the schools to be at their best. So, I think it's great that this is creating a bit more of a battle in the fire of recruiting right now across the league. I
want to get to 2 or 3 more football notes. We'll do that in a second. Today, our first guest off the top is going to be Colt Barber, at 3:35 or 3:40. He writes columns and articles on Sic'Em365.com. He's one of the partners with Ashley and Brian. He's coming on with us. And by the way, pretty good news on 365 Sports hats that we will have available and also up in the store. We talked about that a couple of months ago. But Garrett has something so cool. He's at that media event. He went home, his son Parker wearing the Baylor hat that we all picked up as we walked out the door. I gave one to Craig, who has it next to him on the set. Paul got one, and so I brought it in. I saw Garrett put this picture up, so I had gotten 2. One for me, but I don't wear a lot of hats unless I'm playing golf, and also got one for Craig. Tell us how Parker's reaction to that hat.
Man, he was so excited. So I came in the door, and as soon as I walk in, he just snags it from me. And he's like, this is mine, this is mine. And he usually doesn't do that. And we go out to play ball. We usually go out every night to play ball. He immediately grabbed his toys, grabs his hat, throws it on. He gets up this morning, and we go to take my daughter to work. He immediately grabs his hat, and he's all excited. And last night, because I've been wanting to do this for a couple of years, so I asked Coach Aranda and I asked Brent Ingram, the head of the SID for football, about bringing Parker out to meet the team and stuff, and they were all for it. They said they're happy to do it, bring him out. So I'm excited for that. I got to tell him about that because every time we drive by the stadium, he's like, football, football. So he's pumped for this upcoming season to go out and meet the team.
Well, that's cool. Craig, you have yours on the set. There, you can see it. Yeah. To his left, he's wearing a Rangers hat, but also the cool Baylor hat with the Nike slogan or Nike insignia, logo on the side. So good for Park. That's awesome. He's going to be able to also meet the team.
Yeah, no, that's a very cool gesture. I know they have folks out there quite a bit for various reasons, visiting, parents of recruits or, just people who are connected to the program or, whatever the case may be. They're pretty good about that. So I'm glad that they're accommodating you and your son, and you'll be able to go out there and enjoy a practice. Hopefully get a Saturday or something.
That's what I told them to do. Let's do a Saturday and run it. They like that.
That makes sense.
So this is